Welcome back to the Transforming Basketball podcast, a very different podcast episode today because we're not joined by a coach or a practitioner in the basketball world, but a player I've had the pleasure of working with over the last 2 years, the college prep program in Italy, Linus Holmstrom from Stockholm in Sweden. So Linus, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure being on this podcast, talking with you. It's nice.
It's a different format to what we're used to, hey. But
Yeah.
we're gonna make it a normal discussion. And the reason I wanted to do this is so that coaches can really actually gain the perspective of the biggest reason that we're coaching and the reason why I'm so passionate about ideas such as the CLA and evidence-based ideas. And that's the perspective of the players themselves. And I think there's no better person than Linus, who's been training with this approach now for a while, to actually talk about, everything you experienced. So before we get to that, Linus, could you just briefly kind of introduce your background, kind of where you grew up, your, brief journey with basketball and kind of how that took you to Italy?
Yeah, so I grew up in Stockholm, Sweden, playing for my local team, leading a basket. And I was very motivated very early. So I trained a lot, and then I got in contact with Alex through a camp he held with elite athletes in Sweden. So then I started speaking with him, and he told me about the program he was putting together in Italy, and it sounded very interesting for me. And all the stuff he said about player development and that whole part of the experience, and I felt like that was what I wanted to do. So I decided to go to Italy and play for Coach Alex, and those 2 years have been really, really good for me, for my player development, and also like every aspect as a player, and all that stuff. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and also aside from that, I've been playing with the Swedish national team a lot. Started with under 16s just before I went to Italy, and then from there under 18s in B division where we won, and then now this year in the A division where we managed to stay, but played some good basketball at times, but at times we struggled, but that's normal, and just still a fun experience. So that's kind of what I'm been up to.
Great stuff. Really nicely summarized. So Linus, what we're gonna do is we spoke about this. We're gonna share your highlights, which will go out kind of at the same time as this podcast. And the reason I want to do that is because I think you're the ultimate essence of a player who has developed in an ecological approach through the CLA. Now, we haven't actually ever, I don't think, spoken about these terms, ecological dynamics and the constraint-led approach. But I think you've been really curious about how we practiced the last 2 years. So what would you say this approach is? Maybe for a coach being exposed to this for the first time, how would you say this differs to other kind of coaching methods, etc.?
The biggest difference to me is how you can implement it to the game. Like, it's so tangible, constraint-led approach. You can really see those like things happening in game that we do in practice. So just making the practice more and more look like the game has been very, very, very good for like development and decision making, because most people, and also me before I moved to Italy, is so used to only working on skills like perfecting a crossover, for example.
Yeah.
And for instance, in the constraint-led approach, I'm learning how to do that crossover when I see the read and where it fits, and kind of getting those repetitions in practice all the time helps me like get those live repetitions where it actually needs to be used, and when I can think about why it went wrong, and then when I get that situation in the game, I feel way more ready.
Yeah.
So it's been very very good for my like reading the game, and I feel like stuff slows down when you get the opportunity to practice against that, and in those conditions for 2 years like we did.
That was amazingly well put, Linus. So let's get on to this then. I mean, early on, I think you bought in like straight away, and it was really easy with you. And but I remember, I think we had some conversations about things like the importance of variability, right? And practicing with more variability versus, doing those crossovers, boom, 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 etc. What made you really embrace variability as a player? Because like even when I saw you training by yourself, or sometimes when I went into the gym, you were doing like I remember one point last season you were doing guided defense with Orimus, right? And
Yeah.
you guys were running workouts which were basically workouts which I think were better than workouts I've seen at the professional level with coaches even. It was incredible the stuff you guys designed. So what kind of made you shift from where you were before to that mindset of embracing variability, decision making, etc.?
Just understanding the game, and like when I really listened to what you explained about the variability thing, and it made sense to me. Like even though I make more threes uncontested, staying in the same spot, that will never transfer to the game. And I remember I liked shooting those threes a lot, and I felt like a good, way better shooter when I got to do those things. But on the other side of it, it's way more fun doing those things. When you have some defense, it's more live, and it's pretty boring, to be honest, to stay in the same spot and shoot.
Yeah.
And for me, I just saw the benefit of it, and I also watched some tape, like just generally watching basketball with that in the back of my head. I saw those situations occur all the time, and when you have like skills that you've acquired like through that type of training, those skills are way more easier to bring out when you really need them. If I learn to read what my defender is doing in a certain situation, it's way easier to do that if I'm like I talked about before. If I'm being exposed to that in my everyday training, just with a partner doing guided finishes, for example.
Definitely.
And yeah, so like that approach I think can be implemented or is implemented. We've done in like all parts of the game, finishing, differential finishing, shooting with different contests and all that stuff. It occurs all the time in the game. So for me, it didn't make sense to train any other way.
Amazing. So it's not in my words, it's in the words of others. A lot of coaches, scouts in Europe describe me as you developed as one of the best shooters in Europe for your age group. Okay. And I think, you showed glimpses of what you can do at the Euros. You finished the last game with 27 points against the Lithuanian national team, obviously one of the stronger teams. And obviously you're about to go out to the US, and, after that, you'll go into your Division 1 career in the NCAA, or maybe something else. We don't know. But anyway, I think shooting is a big part of your game, as well as your decision making as a guard and pick and roll. But I want to just focus on the shooting part. So we've obviously done a lot of small-sided games over the last few years, but we've also done some differential learning. And I think the differential learning piece is I think it's actually harder maybe for coaches to understand, because it's not, we haven't got decisions, we haven't got defenders, but obviously it's a lot of variability. Did you find that differential learning helped you as a shooter?
I felt like it prepared me for kind of more difficult shots I take. And catch and shoot threes, maybe you can rep them out in between like workouts or in between different other shots you're taking.
Yeah.
But as soon as you're only shooting those shots, that doesn't prepare you. And what I felt what we did with differential shooting is when I learned how to fade left, when I learned how to shoot with different like step back variations of balance maybe and different footwork, it prepares me of all the like game situations I'll be put in. And like for me, shooting off all the different actions we have felt like it helped me, and like exploring different solutions out of them.
Yeah.
And that the footwork came naturally. It wasn't something I had to think about, or something I didn't have to have cones to know where to put my feet. And I like just explored different solutions during the time we did differential shooting. So when you told me, okay, you have to, I don't know, read what I'm doing. Like if I'm going over, you have to find the solutions to get to the corner as quickly as possible. And the pass comes in a different way all the time.
Yeah.
So if I'm drifting to the corner of a floppy action, how am I about the way I'm catching the ball and the way my footwork is different if I catch it up high or if I catch it low.
Yeah.
So all of those things just made like the whole connection with my whole body just figures things out. And when you put yourself in all those difficult situations, when you get a good pass, it's it's way nicer. So then you really appreciate it, and then you can feel more comfortable knocking it down. So I feel like differential shooting helps in all aspects of shooting,
I
not
love
just
that.
the difficult.
Yeah. Some of my best memories of prep leaders were the first year when we had those morning workouts and we had
Yeah,
the Miles Davis on in the background, early AM, relaxing.
yeah,
And then we just
yeah,
go through an hour of either me playing defense on you or
yeah,
DL or trying to play defense on you. And
yeah.
then the DL activities. Do you have any favorite DL activities that you'd like to share with coaches?
My my favorite ones were actually the the variation part of it. It's when you change ranges and always change footworks. So obviously, most people just shooting the same spot all the time, but you're never getting the same shot twice in a row in basketball. You may go like a couple possessions without you even shooting. So just what we did, what I liked is breaking off the workout by doing different stuff. So I think we did a couple times where I was shooting consistently like variable with the mid-range 3-pointer and then NBA 3-pointer with all off the dribble, catch and shoots, different footworks, and then at a random time you would break it off and make me do like play defense on you to full court and shoot like a pull up or some stuff like that. And I didn't think of it then, but when I thought about it later, I felt like, oh, that had a purpose. And also, what I also liked is shooting with different fatigues. I would go in a split stance for 2 minutes, and my left leg would be shaking.
Yeah.
And then when I was shooting them, my balance was completely off. But also, that can occur in a game. In fourth quarter, you're
Fourth
tired.
quarter, right? Exactly.
Like everything um, is not always perfect. You're not always fresh, and you may not have shot for like I don't know 2 quarters maybe if you started off poorly, but then you have to be ready for that one. You get open, so yeah, all of that stuff was really good.
Fantastic. Really, really well summarized. So how would you, this is a tough one. How would you, if you were to use like singular words to describe your game, Linus, what would they be? I've definitely got one, but if you had to try and describe yourself, how you play in like one word, what would it be?
Creative,
Hmm.
I would say, because I find myself in like a lot of positions where people just do simple solutions and maybe bring it back out, but then I feel like I can find other solutions. Like make if he cuts me off there, I know kind of but through repetition and what I've learned from these past years that I will surely have a counter instead of just bringing it back out, or like pick and roll creativity, like coming off the pick and roll and not always, because a lot of point guards do this when they come off the pick and roll and they're always turning the corner and they're always looking down and trying to go all the way. I feel like being creative and being diverse of doing different things is like summarizes my game pretty well.
Great stuff. Really, I think I was going to say adaptive, but I think
Yeah,
creative is even better because that's
yeah,
what you are. So let's get to conceptual offense because you alluded to it a little bit there, getting into the pick and roll stuff, and we just we've been obviously texting for the summer since we both left Italy, and I think we've both been watching a lot of basketball, and I think the way that we view the game now is very different through everything we've learned together over the last 2 years,
yeah,
and I think especially principles of play on offense and on defense. But let's focus on the offense. And I think, the conceptual offense really, I think there was I couldn't have had a better point guard in Europe your age to, be the figurehead for our program and kind of have you leading the offense. But could you just explain, kind of maybe give coaches the base outline of whatever you remember? You can go as deep or as short as you like, just explaining to them how we played conceptual offense at college prep.
Conceptual offense is not about running set plays or running actions where we only look for one thing. Conceptual offense is having a trigger, like a pick and roll, a wide, like we call it, a screen away, and playing off reads, playing off each other, and playing off instincts and all the stuff we learn from practice, reading the defense, taking what they give us, and finding solutions in that system. So, for instance, all the pick and roll solutions we drilled, like, I don't know, five times a week at practice, like always.
Wall pick and roll 2-on-2, right?
Exactly. All of those like small-sided games had like prepared us for the game. So when we got into the game, all players on our team had a good understanding of what conceptual is and what we wanted out of it. So it was very clear for us that we just played off each other and played off the defense, and then like look for good shots, high percentage shots that would give us a high point per possession, and just having those base triggers and then playing off that has just made it way easier to score, but also look for different options than a coach always telling you that you have to look for this shot. But that's not always the case, or that's mostly never the case, that that's the only shot that's open. So like conceptual offense is about the coach encouraging the players to find solutions within the basic structure that we had of just starting triggers. And also I was about to say something else, but I forgot. But that's kind of how I sum it up.
Oh, excellent. So let's go deeper into that, because we played a lot of pick and roll, and I think one of the reasons we did that is for the development of you guys. I felt that was really important, and I think you really showed how skilled you were on the pick and roll. Now, I'd love it, Linus, if you could just speak about some of our coverage solutions, and this is just important for coaches. I want to make the difference that. I think you're about to be really impressed by, I'm not putting you on the spot, Linus, but by what Linus is about to share with us in terms of just his knowledge about the game. But I think the most important thing is his knowledge of, and that means what we as a team, what Linus himself actually shows within the game itself. So it's one thing being able to like talk about these things as we're going to do now, and it's another thing actually being able to do it. And that's why, as you mentioned, Linus, like things like doing the small-sided games, that's the only way these coverage solutions can actually be developed well. And it's more important that we see them in the game. But Linus, could you just share, some of those coverage solutions and what, you became really good at over the last 2 years?
Yeah. So the one thing that I've realized, like will be with me my whole career, is the reject first and foremost. Like the reject is almost always on, and when people are playing aggressive coverages, when you reject, you get so much space, and then they kick to the corner, and everything is collapsing when you reject. So reject is always my first look, and it also helps me bring down my defender if I don't have the reject, and it's a good setup to make him get stuck in the screen. So obviously there's 1,000 reads of this, but first, I'm gonna try to run them in order. So I have somewhat organized. So the whip it pass, if the strong side corner is over helping or is into deep, and I have a shooter in the corner, that's also a very good look. So you're not even coming off the pick. You're just taking one dribble towards, making him go into tag, and then you just throw it to the corner. Then when you get off before you get off the screen, you can also look for the bingo. And I realized mostly in practice, and I think I did it like once or twice in the game, is when you try to reject and they overcommit, then it's really useful to use the bingo when you go in between my defender and the screener's defender, or in between the screener and my own defender.
Yep.
So it's not like a split, but it's just before
Before.
the split. So that also creates a bit more separation. And then if they're playing a drop, for instance, the hostage has also been really good. So you come off the screen, you take the defender on your back, and you let him slip, roll, whatever he wants to do, pop, so you can kick it back. And we worked on a lot of Gortat screens also. So when I'm hostaging my player, the screener goes down and set another screen on the drop defender, so you can get to the rim way easier. Also, when they're in an aggressive show, or switch or whatever, I'm always trying to, we call it stalk the show, get over it. And especially if they're lazy hedging, lazy switching, doing any type of bad job defensively, always try to get over the hedge guy. And when you do that, there's one less guy I'm worrying about, and then you can just go into your domino sequence, kicking it out because you're 5-on-4. Same thing with the splitting the hedge, and also the relay pass. Can be really good against, especially against hedging and switching. Also, if the big guy's slipping, because if he gets out early and I'm kicking it head early, the relay pass and then the pass inside can be really useful. So the read for the guy I'm kicking it ahead to is whether he kicks it in, whether he skips it to the other side if the corner guy tags in, or whether he just extras it if that guy is too far in. Or of course, if he has a close out attack, he will take that also. But that's just one of the main ones. And let me think. The skip we also worked on a lot. The skip pass to the corner, because like when because we encourage our big guys, our screeners, to slip a lot of screens to get out early, because that when they started doing that really well, their whole defense had to come in, because otherwise it would just be pocket after pocket pass. And we did that sometimes with Vlad, especially when we got those alley oops.
Yep.
And it was really good. But when defense started figuring that out, they tagged way too early, and then we worked a lot of skip passes to the corners for our shooters. So and we have a lot of more, and you can talk about this for ages. But like again switches also. If they switch, you always try to hunt a mismatch, and I like attacking bigger defenders, because I feel like first and foremost I get way more space for my shot, because they always take one or two steps to get some space and get some slack if they take it easy on defense. So I always use the boomerang pass, and so I pass it ahead, take a couple steps back to get some space, and then I get it back in my hands. And playing 1-on-1 with the license to kill, as you like to say, get the ball in my hands. That's a way more comfortable 1-on-1 than getting it off the dribble and being a bit stressed. So when you get that, like, you can take that breath, it's easy to get downhill or either look for your shot also.
Linus, that was incredible, man. Just incredible just to listen to that. Like, it's coaches, I think, will be shocked that you're 18. I mean, when you after you have an amazing pro career, you are going to be my money's on it now. You're going to be a high level coach for sure. Whoever hires you is
I want
to. So let's get on to, so that's our conceptual offense, and we're obviously, you know, these principles at play we developed in a lot of our practices. I think the biggest thing is it's difficult, Linus, for coaches it's actually really difficult to describe what we did at prep, because it was always changing, right? And I think it's tough for coaches always to see it on social media, or even to hear about it like we're discussing now, and then to see it live in person, it was just a different thing. But you know, what would you say our team practices were like? What did it feel like as a player to be in that environment?
You learned something new every day. Like all of the stuff I just mentioned, we went through that that stuff quick, and always exposed to difficult situations. Like we played constraint-led approach, small-sided games where I had two defenders on me and I was going to bring it up and score with like 3 dribbles, I think. So being put in very difficult situations, like it's very difficult, and sometimes you get frustrated. But when you always look to get better, it's really beneficial. And also the environment we had was not like it was not a angry environment. Like you would never scream at me making a bad decision. Like if I tried to pocket pass it and there was no pocket pass, that was because a lot of coaches I played for in my day would stop the practice if I made a bad pass, and he would talk about it for 20 minutes, and you waste 20 minutes of practice. So what we did, we were really efficient. So we set up small-sided games on both baskets, and being really efficient with the rotation, so everybody got a lot of reps, and also just breaking things up with shooting, breaking things up with differential learning, more small-sided games, and then going into playing to like have a focus and have a small amount of triggers that we use to create our advantage, and really focusing on those reads, because a lot of times you could just, oh yeah, we're playing this get, and then after the get we don't get have anything. We don't get anything. Yeah, no pun intended. But we don't have anything. So then it's just a regular 1-on-1. And even if we score of that, it's not what we wanted to find. And you said like one chance to create dominoes.
Yeah.
So when we did that, the get was the main focus, and then you really had to think, okay, what is my defense doing? What is his defense doing? What coverage are they doing? Are they going under? And that created like an urgency that we really wanted to create an advantage of that one. So when we came in a game and ran that get, we wanted to create something of it so bad that we like didn't almost re-trigger, because we have more time on the clock. So we, even if we didn't have anything, it was like luxury for us to have another chance of getting dominoes.
Absolutely.
So when we practice in that environment, getting all those reps and getting all the reads in, it was really efficient, and really like it was fun as a player to play in that environment.
Amazing. That one opportunity can trade, definitely. I think that was one of my favorites, just in terms of it made our defense so much better as well as the offense at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you were to have, Linus, like 3 of your favorite small-sided games, or even like constraints, what would they have been?
I like most of the pick and roll small-sided games, just because I felt like that was the part of the game I wanted to like work on the most, and it was gonna be good for my future. So just all the, I think you call it Fortnite, or when you had to score of all those different reads. So it was a reject, it was a relay passing, slip, it was a twist, it was a get, and all those things. So it really helped me, those small-sided games, like looking for all of that stuff. Even when the defense knew what you were gonna do, how do you create an advantage even if they know? Because in the highest level, the scouting is crazy. So they already know what the play is, and they already know what you're looking for. But how can you still create an advantage of that? And that small-sided game, or what is it? Small-sided?
Yeah, it was a small-sided game.
Really was good, because the more you ticked off the list, the more difficult it got. And also it helped me a lot playing with my big guy. I used to play with a big, so he could set me good screens. So whenever I play with big guy, I kind of brief him on what I look for, and how to play with him, and how we would do the best. And it kind of helps me in that chemistry. So with every big guy I play with now, I kind of can see what he wants to do, and then I've worked on every read, and I've worked on every kind of not everything, but like the most of the things you can do in those situations. So I feel very open and adaptable to any
Yeah,
big.
that's it. And for the coaches listening, I think Linus basically described affordances in the best way possible. And, you know, those affordances, those opportunities for action, you know, he's exposed to through the practice environment we created. So, Linus, the last question. Let's say we were going to redo the second year of college prep again, and we're rewinding to a year ago. What could I have done differently as a coach to be a more effective coach?
Mm. Oh, that's difficult.
Don't feel like you have to be nice.
No, I know. I'm not gonna be too nice, but I felt hmm, most of the stuff you did was very new to me, so I don't have a list of like facts how
Sure.
I want it to be. Of course, I had preferences, and at times when we did differential
Yep.
shooting, I became very frustrated about my shoot because I wasn't making anything, and I'm a high level shooter, so when I was missing that much, it made me very frustrated. So at parts of practice, that would have me get me out of my zone or get me out of
Yep.
my regular self me. So maybe one of the things would be like uh, making the drills like the perfect level of difficulty.
Yep.
So you can do that with any player. If you play with a 15-year-old that's not a good shooter, maybe you grade it down and play have easier drills, but still
Exactly.
differential. So like monitoring those drills for the level of the player, and yeah, if we did that a bit more and not always playing maybe example this double team drill with three dribbles I think.
Yes. Yep.
When I'm struggling too much or when it's completely impossible and I'm not getting any value of it because I'm
Yep.
always getting into bad shots and I'm not finding the solutions, maybe have the second defender come in even later so I
Yep.
can maybe get one or two reps where I feel like okay, that's a solution that works.
I
Yeah.
think that was actually one of the best. That's great feedback. I think when did we have that conversation? We had it. I think that was one of the best conversations we had in the year. It was the contested shooting, right?
Yeah.
When we said it was too challenging, some of it, and then and I think we did a better job after that, right?
Yeah.
Adapting some of the what we did things like we added a passing option or we just made the defense start further away. And then I think we
Mhm.
even had some more like lightly contested ones kind of interspersed, right?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember we monitor that a bit to for it to work better, and I felt like that was good.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just the challenge point, something I was talking about before, Linus, where it's like if it's too hard, it's like you said, you get frustrated. And I think that's one of the hardest things as coaches, especially, you know, being able to change kind of the activities based on the players in a
Mhm.
team practice. Like I'm constantly trying to get better at that. And it's not easy, maybe sometimes when you got 12 different players and everyone's slightly, you know, different abilities, different needs, trying to
Yeah.
find like the sweet spot for everyone. But it's important.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It just comes with like everyone is not at the same level of anything. So maybe like for finishing, for example, Sharano needs more difficult finishing drills than I need,
Yeah.
but shooting wise, I need more challenging shooting drills than he did.
Yeah.
So just you know, experimenting with that and like finding the sweet spot, as you said.
Excellent. Linus, I just want to say thanks so much for taking the time for joining us. I think that was such an insightful chat we had. Man, what a pleasure it was to get the chance to work with you for the last 2 years. I think, man, I'm always going to remember that. And I just hope I get a chance to coach you again at some
Yeah,
point in the future.
yeah, that would be fun.
Thanks, man. And we're all wishing you the best for your upcoming season at Colorado Prep, and just excited to see where you go from there.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, man. I'm excited to follow your career as a coach, Jake.
Thanks, man.